Eden 4 had once been a shimmering jewel among the stars, a verdant planet bathed in sunlight, its seas teeming with life and its landscapes lush with unspoiled beauty. But now, it was nothing more than an echo, a ghostly remnant drifting through the void of space. The planet's vibrant greens and deep blues had faded to mere specters, visible only as faint, ethereal outlines against the backdrop of the galaxy. This was a dimension apart from the galaxy's bustling activity, a realm that seemed to sigh with silent resignation. THX Rantar, a merchant from the Serene Imperium, maneuvered his small, sleek frigate through this disorienting emptiness. His mission was audacious, to bridge the gap between his frustrated empire and the elusive humans who had vanished from sight. The Serene Imperium had tried and failed to penetrate the humans' enigmatic isolation. Rantar was their last, best hope, a gamble wrapped in diplomacy and desperation. As he approached the human space station, a structure of gleaming metal and glass nestled in the shadow of Eden 4, the frigate's comm system crackled to life. Rantar's heart raced, a mix of anticipation and trepidation. His pre-recorded message played, the words rolling out with measured formality but tinged with an underlying nervousness. Greetings, humans. I am THX Rantar, a merchant from the Serene Imperium. I extend a hand of friendship and commerce. If I have erred in my approach, I apologize and will depart shortly. The message echoed into the void, a lone voice amidst the silence. For a heartbeat, there was only stillness. Then, as if awakening from a deep slumber, the space station's sensors flickered to life. Rantar's frigate was engulfed in a web of energy scans, the station's machinery whirring and humming with newfound activity. It was as though the station had suddenly remembered its purpose, to scrutinize this unexpected visitor. Rantar's breath came in shallow bursts as the scans intensified. His ship, a sleek vessel designed for both speed and discretion, seemed incongruous against the backdrop of an entire system rendered ghostly. The scanners probed and prodded, and Rantar could only wait and hope that his message had been received with the respect he intended. Minutes felt like hours. The void outside seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with the ghostly remains of a civilization that had vanished but was not entirely gone. The once vibrant Eden 4 was now just a shadow of its former self, a reminder of the mysterious power wielded by the humans. Suddenly, the silence was pierced by the hum of docking clamps. Rantar's ship was drawn into the docking bay of the human space station, an eerie calm settling over him. The frigate's landing gear engaged with a soft thud as it made contact with the station's docking platform. The hatch of his ship hissed open, and 3 figures emerged from the station. They were clad in attire that spoke of both function and formality, military precision blended with an air of relaxed authority. The tallest among them, a dark-skinned human with a commanding presence, stepped forward. His eyes, sharp and inquisitive, fixed on Rantar with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Welcome aboard," Rantar said, his voice steady despite the turbulence in his chest. He offered a courteous bow. "I hope my approach has not caused undue inconvenience." The human leader, identified by a small, intricate insignia on his uniform, glanced around the interior of the frigate with a keen eye. His demeanor shifted from guarded to intrigued. "I'm Commander Sona Fabbit. Your arrival is unexpected, but not unwelcome. Let's see what you have brought." The other 2 humans flanked the commander, their gazes scanning the various items Rantar had on display. The atmosphere inside the frigate, once tense and uncertain, began to warm with an unspoken mutual curiosity. The humans' interest was piqued, their initial apprehension melting into a cautious but genuine curiosity. Rantar, his nervousness giving way to a hopeful optimism, guided the humans through the cargo hold. His offerings were varied, intricate musical instruments, handcrafted souvenirs, and artistic curiosities. As he spoke, he watched the humans' reactions, fascinated by the exotic and unfamiliar. Commander Fabbit's eyes lingered on a particularly elaborate musical instrument. A harpsichord-like creation that seemed to combine elements of an accordion and a harp. He tentatively pressed a key, producing a sound that was less than harmonious but rich with potential. "This instrument," Rantar began, his voice steadying, "is called a soroi. It is used in musical performances and is a symbol of our cultural heritage. Commander Fabit's expression softened. He began to experiment with the soroi, his touch growing more confident. The discordant notes transformed into a melody, a strange but captivating symphony that echoed through the cargo hold. Rantar watched, a mixture of relief and curiosity in his eyes. The moment felt like a bridge, a tentative connection between two worlds that had been so isolated from each other. As the melody flowed, the promise of dialogue and discovery seemed just within reach. The stage was set. The silent frontier was no longer an impenetrable void but a space where the echoes of past encounters and future possibilities began to intertwine. The hum of the space station's artificial gravity field was a constant presence, a gentle reminder of the delicate balance between humanity and its newfound visitors. Rantar, having disembarked from his frigate, was now a guest in the grand chambers of the human space station, a marvel of engineering and design. The station, sleek and minimalistic, housed a sprawling market district where various alien artifacts and goods were exchanged. Commander Sona Fabbit had invited Rantar to a lavishly appointed conference room, an impressive space filled with ambient light and shimmering holograms that projected data streams and interstellar maps. The room was a curious blend of the futuristic and the familiar. With soft, comfortable seating juxtaposed against walls adorned with high-tech displays. Rantar couldn't help but marvel at the elegance and efficiency of human design. As he took his seat at the large, oval table, Rantar's eyes were drawn to a large holographic display projecting the vastness of the galaxy. Human engineers had painstakingly mapped out every star system, their precision evident in the clarity of the projection. The Sereni Imperium's position was a glaring red spot, a testament to their frustration over humanity's 10-year isolation. Commander Fabbit, accompanied by a human envoy named Dr. Ilara Mayer, a specialist in interspecies relations, took their places across from Rantar. Dr. Mayer, her attire a blend of both formal and practical, offered a warm but professionally distant smile. Her eyes were sharp, and her demeanor suggested a deep understanding of the delicate nature of first contact. Mr. Rantar, Fabbit began, we've reviewed your goods and find them intriguing. But before we proceed, there are questions that need addressing. Our isolation wasn't an arbitrary choice. Can you shed light on why you've come now, after a decade of silence? Rantar cleared his throat, choosing his words carefully. The Sereni Imperium has grown increasingly anxious. The human dimension shift was an unprecedented move, and our attempts to breach it have failed. Our empire's leaders believe that fostering trade might be the key to restoring interstellar balance. Dr. Mayer leaned forward, her gaze thoughtful. Your approach is both bold and, I must admit, refreshing. However, you must understand the significance of our isolation. It wasn't merely a shield, it was a statement. Rantar nodded, recognizing the weight of her words. We understand that now. But we also recognize the mutual benefits that could arise from re-engagement. Trade, after all, is a bridge between cultures. The holographic display shifted, showcasing an array of human goods, art, technology, and scientific advancements. The display's focus narrowed to a particularly intriguing item, a crystalline device that seemed to pulse with a soft, internal light. What is this? Rantar asked, his curiosity piqued. Dr. Mayer's eyes twinkled with excitement. That is a lumisynth resonator. It's a device capable of harnessing and amplifying ambient light into a usable energy source. It's one of our most recent advancements and could revolutionize energy applications. Rantar's eyes widened in admiration. Fascinating. And what would you seek in return? Commander Fabbit exchanged a glance with Dr. Mayer before responding. We're interested in exploring areas where our technologies and resources might complement each other. We seek not just goods, but a deeper understanding and mutual respect. A subtle tension hung in the air, a reminder of the stakes involved. Rantar had hoped to ease the strained relations with trade, but the path ahead was fraught with complexity. Both sides were aware that trust needed to be earned, and the exchange of goods was only the beginning. Dr. Mayer leaned in, her voice a soft whisper, though the room's acoustics rendered it clear. You should be aware that our interest in trade extends beyond mere economics. We are eager to understand the Serene Imperium's intentions. There's a lot at stake here. Rantar met her gaze, determination etched into his features. My intention is to establish a foundation for future cooperation. We recognize the significance of your isolation and respect it. Our offer is genuine. As the discussion continued, the atmosphere gradually shifted from formal to collaborative. The initial apprehension began to dissipate, replaced by a cautious optimism. The possibilities of trade were explored in depth. With both parties outlining their expectations and negotiating terms, the day wore on, and as the meeting drew to a close, Rantar felt a sense of tentative accomplishment. The road to re-establishing relations was still long, but the first steps had been taken. He walked through the corridors of the space station with a renewed sense of purpose, the echoes of their dialogue resonating with the promise of future cooperation. The galaxy outside remained as distant as ever, but within the confines of the human space station, a fragile bridge was beginning to form. The hope for a new chapter in interstellar relations burned brightly, even amidst the echoes of past misunderstandings and isolation. The dim corridors of the human space station seemed to whisper secrets as Rantar walked alone, deep in thought. The earlier meeting had been an exhausting yet exhilarating foray into a potential future of cooperation. The discussions on trade were fruitful, but the undercurrent of unresolved tensions was palpable. He passed by the station's observation deck, where the vast expanse of space stretched out like a black velvet canvas sprinkled with diamonds. The serenity of the view was a stark contrast to the swirling doubts in his mind. Rantar was about to reach his quarters when his communicator buzzed. "Rantar, I need to see you immediately," came the voice of Commander Fabbit, the urgency clear even through the electronic filter. Rantar quickly made his way to the conference room, where Fabbit and Dr. Alara Mayer were already waiting. Fabbit's normally composed demeanor was replaced by a rare look of concern. "Rantar," Fabbit said, his voice edged with tension. "We've encountered an issue. The trade agreements we discussed have prompted an unexpected reaction from some factions within the station." Dr. Mayer nodded, her expression serious. "It seems our conversation has sparked unrest among certain groups. Some of them fear that re-establishing contact with the Serene Imperium could destabilize our current position." Rantar frowned. "Unrest? But we've only just begun negotiations." "It's not just about the negotiations," Mayer explained, her tone careful. "The last decade has been one of isolation and self-preservation. For many, the notion of re-engagement with the outside galaxy is both unsettling and disruptive." Fabbit tapped a control panel, bringing up a holographic display of several messages and protests from various station factions. "There are concerns that resuming trade could lead to a resurgence of conflict or undermine the stability we've worked so hard to maintain." Rantar's heart sank. The fragile hope of a new era was being threatened by internal dissent. "What can we do to address these concerns?" Mayer's eyes softened. "We need to demonstrate that our intentions are genuine. If we can address their fears and show that this isn't just about trade but about mutual growth and cooperation, it might calm the unrest." Fabbit nodded in agreement. "We're planning a series of public forums to discuss the implications of re-establishing contact with the Serene Imperium. We'd like you to participate and address these concerns directly." Rantar hesitated, weighing the implications of this request. The forums would expose him to public scrutiny and potential hostility, but they were also an opportunity to build trust and show his commitment. "I'll participate," he said finally, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The next day, the forums were held in the Grand Assembly Hall of the space station, a cavernous space filled with curious and wary spectators. Rantar, dressed in formal attire, stood at a podium. Facing a sea of faces, some attentive, others skeptical, the session began with an introduction by Commander Fabbit, who briefly outlined the goals of the forums. As he concluded, the floor was open to questions from the audience. a representative from the station's Security Council stood up. Mr. Rantar, given the history of the Serene Imperium's interactions with other species, how can we trust that your intentions are sincere? Rantar took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping across the room. I understand your concerns. The Serene Imperium has made mistakes in the past, but I assure you that our intent now is to build a mutually beneficial relationship. We recognize the value of peace and cooperation and have no desire to repeat past errors. A murmur of discussion rippled through the audience, but the tension remained. Another voice cut through the noise, a scientist from the station's research division. What tangible benefits can your people offer us? Why should we risk destabilizing our current peace for a potential advantage? Rantar's mind raced. We offer not just goods but also knowledge and technology that could significantly advance your research and development. Our commitment is to a partnership where both sides benefit and learn from each other. As the forum continued, Rantar answered questions with a mix of candor and diplomacy, gradually shifting the mood from suspicion to cautious optimism. By the end of the session, the atmosphere had changed. While skepticism remained, there was a newfound willingness to consider the possibilities of cooperation. In the quiet moments following the forum, Rantar walked alone once more through the corridors of the space station. The day had been exhausting, but the spark of hope still flickered. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but each step, each conversation, was a stride towards building something meaningful. The galaxy was still vast and unknown, but within the confines of the human space station. A fragile bridge was taking shape. Rantar's efforts were far from over, and the journey was just beginning. The space station's corridors felt colder than usual as Rantar made his way to the docking bay, his steps echoing in the hushed silence. The forums had ended with a tentative nod towards cooperation, but the journey ahead remained fraught with uncertainty. The station's promise of mutual growth was a fragile hope, not yet solidified. Rantar's communicator buzzed. The message was brief: urgent meeting in the command center. Immediate attendance required. He quickened his pace, navigating through the labyrinthine halls until he reached the command center's heavy doors. They slid open to reveal Commander Fabbit and Dr. Ilara Mayer, both wearing expressions of concern. Rantar, we need to discuss a critical development, Fabbit said, his voice tight. There's been an incident involving one of the factions opposed to our negotiations. Mayer's eyes were grave as she continued. A group of radicals has staged a protest outside the station's central control. They're demanding an end to all contact with the Serene Imperium and threatening to sabotage our systems. Rantar's heart sank. The risk of violent disruption was higher than he'd anticipated. What's the current situation? We've managed to contain the immediate threat, Fabbit replied. However, the radicals are gaining support. If this situation escalates, it could jeopardize the entire negotiation process. Mayer leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to act quickly to de-escalate the situation and demonstrate that the Serene Imperium's intentions are indeed peaceful. A plan formed in Rantar's mind. What if I were to address the radicals directly? If I can appeal to their sense of reason and show them the benefits of cooperation, perhaps we can defuse the situation. Fabbit and Mayer exchanged glances before nodding. It's a risky move, Fabbit said. But it might be our best option. Rantar prepared himself for the confrontation, knowing that this was more than just a negotiation, it was a test of his resolve and diplomacy. He donned his ceremonial robes, symbols of his people's commitment to peace, and made his way to the station's central control. Outside, a crowd of disgruntled station residents and protesters had gathered, their faces masked by anger and fear. The central control's reinforced doors had been barricaded by the radicals, who shouted slogans and waved banners demanding an end to the Serene Imperium's presence. Rantar approached the crowd, his heart pounding in his chest. The protesters turned their attention to him, their anger momentarily subdued by curiosity. I am THX Rantar of the Serene Imperium, he called out, his voice resonating through the din. I come to speak with you, not as an invader but as an emissary of peace and cooperation. The crowd fell silent, their gaze fixed on him. Rantar took a deep breath, continuing. I understand your fears. The isolation of the past decade has been a time of vulnerability for all of us. But let me assure you that our intentions are not to disrupt your way of life but to offer a partnership that benefits both our peoples. A voice from the crowd called out, how can we trust you? Your people have a history of conquest. Rantar raised his hands in a gesture of openness. I acknowledge our history, but I also acknowledge our present and future. The Sereni Imperium is seeking to move beyond past mistakes. We want to learn from each other and build a future where both our civilizations can thrive. The crowd murmured among themselves, the anger giving way to contemplation. Rantar could see the shift in the mood, the seeds of doubt being replaced by a tentative hope. One of the protest leaders, a woman with a resolute expression, stepped forward. And what assurances can you give us? How do we know this isn't just another facade? Rantar met her gaze steadily. The best assurance I can offer is our willingness to engage directly with you, to be transparent and to work together to address your concerns. We are prepared to establish oversight committees, ensure regular communication, and adapt our approach based on your feedback. The protest leader hesitated, then nodded slowly. We'll need to see concrete actions and commitments. Words alone won't be enough. Rantar bowed slightly. We understand. We will provide the necessary guarantees and work with you to build a framework of trust. As he finished speaking, the crowd began to disperse, their anger replaced by a cautious optimism. The immediate threat of sabotage had been averted, but the real work lay ahead in proving the sincerity of their intentions. Back in the command center, Fabbit and Mayer awaited his return. The tension in the room had eased somewhat, but the challenge remained. You've done well, Fabbit said, a note of relief in his voice. But this is just the beginning. We need to follow through on our promises and show that we're committed to a true partnership. Rantar nodded, understanding the gravity of the task ahead. The journey to rebuild trust and establish a lasting peace was far from over, but for the first time, there was a tangible sense of progress. As he looked out through the observation window at the vast expanse of space, Rantar felt a renewed sense of purpose. The stars seemed to glimmer with possibilities. Their light a beacon of hope in the midst of uncertainty. The galaxy was vast and fraught with challenges, but for the first time, a bridge had been built. The echoes of hope were faint but real, and Rantar was determined to see them grow into a lasting legacy of cooperation and understanding.